Kinailangan pa ba natin na i-zero talaga si PhilHealth to free up 74 billion pesos, Mr. President?
I know, Mr. President, that's also the question of many. And I've thought about this long and hard. And there's no denying that PhilHealth has a savings amount of 600 billion, Mr. President. And that's also the reason why initially the administration thought of it as a way also to augment certain short fundings that we had, for example, for health workers, etc. Hindi natin maintindihan ba't hindi nila ginagamit yung pera na nandun na meron sila na nakaimbak sa isang, ewan ko kung anong klaseng account yan, savings account, na ang kinikita ay mas mababa pa kesa sa inflation. Mr. President, hindi pwedeng sisihin na nagkulang tayo sa pagbibigay sa kanila. Kasi nga ang daming ang pera na nandyan. Hindi nila pinamimigay ang pera dun sa mga nangangailangan at tinuturuan din natin sila ng leksyon. Kung bigay ka ng bigay, nandun lang yung pera, hindi naman nagagamit. Paano naman yung mga ibang programa rin ng gobyerno na nangangailangan din ng funding? Yun nga yung sinasabi ko, pag meron kang, syempre, di ba, sinasabi natin, 5 yung anak mo, lahat yan kailangan pantay-pantay na mabigyan mo. Totoo yun. Pero sa lahat sa kanila, tinitignan mo rin kung sino may pangangailangan at sino naman ang may kakayanan na itayo rin ang kanyang sarili. Yun din ang sinasabi natin, it's a leadership problem also in PhilHealth and it's a disbursement problem. Gaya nga ng sinabi ni Senator Cynthia, ang problema din sa PhilHealth, hindi na natin alam kung ano ba talaga yung mga benepisyo natin. Wala tayong card na nagsasabi hanggang dito o ganyan ang maibibigay sa'yo, ang tagal-tagal ng approval minsan, hindi alam ng mga ating mga kababayan kung paano sila comply dun sa mga requirements. So ito yung mga nagiging issue. Hindi sila kulang sa pera. At alam ko yung iba talagang pinagdidiinan nito. Pero 600 billion ang meron sila. Samantalang ang dami natin din pangangailangan pagdating sa edukasyon, pagdating sa infrastruktura. Alam mo, maganda talagang magbigay ng social protection, wealth transfer, importante yan. Pero kailangan din natin ng wealth generating initiatives kasi hindi natin mapopondohan ang mga ibang bagay na magbibigay ng suporta sa ating mga kababayan kung ang gobyerno ay walang programa.
Level for the NDRRMF. The 2024 level. Sige, para lang alam natin kasi ubos na daw siya ngayon eh. So since we're planning for 2025, i-input natin yung 2024 experience, Mr. President.
20.5 billion the NEP in, so may increase pa rin.
20.5 is the level of that fund for 2024.
For 2024.
Okay, kahapon, sabi ng Presidente, ubos na. Ipapakonfirm natin sa DBM kung ubos na or paubos na. Okay, 20.4? What is to that disaster fund? Because recent experience have shown that we really need to augment the fund. Kasi November pa lang, this year, ubos na eh.
Mr. President, that can be taken into consideration when you make your proposals. But again, I would just like to reiterate the rationale behind it. The contingency fund can be transferred to any department. It's 5 years, 1 billion ang ginastos.
Total 1 billion, not 1 billion per year.
Well,
total of 1 billion. Okay, sige.
Oh, so 1
billion a year. Oh,
yeah. So, Mr. President, yes. It just underscores really the health of our banks. Of course, we're not taking that for granted. We still have 250 billion. But even if we double, triple it based on average, we're still okay, and we have the assurance that we can cover every deposit, the insured amount of 500,000 pesos.
Yes, well, I do not know the mathematics there of how much should that fund be. Akala ko bago na projects you approved the Cavite Industrial Area Flood Risk Management Project and the Pasig Marikina River Channel Improvement Project Phase 4. Akala ko bago. That was the impression I got yesterday. Ngayon pa, now, the correct information is that we will be getting supplemental loans for these two projects. So, nag-increase ang costs nila. Tanong yan na Mr. President, kasi debate tayo ng debate dito, nag-guard kami sa plenary.
Mr. President, only for national disasters or urgent needs, pagka confidential and intelligence fund,
dapat hindi.
hindi naman talaga.
Oo, dapat hindi kasi
And sa 2024, binawalan na yan sa GAA.
dapat daw hindi.
Hindi, contingency to. Select na to.
Okay, so merong special provision that the fund, confidential or intelligence funds for non-security agencies unless the President certifies it necessary.
So it can for those who are already legitimately given CIF. Kasi Mr. President, sabi ko, debate tayo ng debate sa floor, binabantayan natin yung mga levels ng level ng confidential and intelligence, tapos pwede palang i-augment from the 13 billion contingency fund.
Mr. President, with the if the President deems it necessary, but I was told that this was actually a line added here in the Senate, which we can always amend later on.
Kasi
Or be specific
I hope-
about what constitutes a national emergency for the utilization of that fund.
I hope that the chairwoman appreciates my point na, di ba,
I
debate
do.
tayo ng debate rito, binabantayan natin yung level ng mga CIF, and yet meron palang 13 billion na mas malaki pa sa level ng CIF na pinag-uusapan natin na potential source to add. It doesn't
Right.
make sense, Mr. President.
No, it doesn't. This was from last year, which can definitely be amended. And Mr. President, for the record, none of the contingency fund from last year was actually used for this year was used for CF or IF.
No,
Pero
but-
yun nga, tanggalin
But
natin
that's
yung possibility.
That's the actual use. Andun ako sa the possibility nga, the theoretical.
I agree.
So, ang bantayan po.
I agree. I already accept even.
Thank you.
No.
In principle, in principle, yes.
Let's do this in
Yes,
principle, but let's discuss this in plenary.
And then I think one difference of our committee report when compared to the GAB this time is we took out the ACAP.
Yes, Mr.
ACAP.
President.
Opo. Andito naman yung ating LBRMO na may institutional memory. Last year ba yung ACAP ay kasama sa GAB o hindi? May we know, Madam, the Chairwoman?
Hindi po kasama sa GAB.
Hindi nga kasama sa GAB. So last year, si ACAP wala na sa NEP, wala pa sa GAB, lumabas sa BICAM. Okay, ngayon, sa ngayong taon, si ACAP wala sa NEP pero nasa GAB. Tapos, so improved. Actually, if you look at the basic facts, improved ang situation ni ACAP because it's now part of GAB. So, what is the reason why in some parts of the GAB, sinunod ng committee natin, how come this part of the GAB where there is an ACAP to the tune of, ang ACAP kasi is Ayuda sa Kapos ang Kita program, to the tune of 39 billion. So, on that point, hindi tayo nag-agree sa GAB. May we know the reasoning of the committee?
Mr. President, this is also in deference to the Vice Chair of the Committee on Finance for the DSWD. When I spoke to her about this, what she said is she would like to discuss further and to look into what really is the report on the progress of ACAP. Who has it been disbursed to? Is it really necessary, or is this already part of a redundant program that can be rationalized? So, hindi po nangangahulugan na i-retain o tatanggalin natin. Kasi pagdating po sa plenary at saka yung mga submissions ng mga amendments, doon natin makikita paano na-justify ng Finance Vice Chair yung pagtatanggal o pagbabalik nitong akap na to?
Yung 39 billion pesos na budget for a program, mas malaki po yan sa budget ng ibang departments. Tama po?
Tama po.
Tama po. Actually, mas malaki siya sa Department of Foreign Affairs, Mr. President. Tama po? Tama po ba?
Kahit po sa budget ng Congress, mas malaki po yan. Kaya nga po,
Wag natin i-compare sarili natin. Let's say sa Department of Foreign Affairs.
mas
Tama?
malaki.
Oh.
Alam niyo po, talagang nagulantang ang marami dahil nga, syempre hindi naman barya-barya lang ito. Ngayon, kung talaga namang nakakatulong, kailangan malaman din natin, no? Paano ba ito nakatulong? Ito ba ay kailangan o umulit lang sa isang programa na pwedeng doon na lang natin ilagay imbis na dito? So, yun po yung mabuti rin maringgan pagdating sa budget ng DSWD. Pag-explica ng, alam ko naman, very efficient yung ating secretary ng DSWD, baka mas kaya niyang i-explica kung paano ba nangyari ito, paano ba ipamahagi ito, tapos malaman natin sa Finance Vice Chair kung ito ay tatanggapin niya at ano ang dahilan kung tatanggapin niya o hindi niya tatanggapin.
So, doon po sa DBCC and the DBM, which drafted our the budget, may we know the reason why they dropped AKAP? Because AKAP is in the GAA, GAA 2024. So alam nila yun, may historical knowledge sila, historical data. But they dropped AKAP from NEP. May we know the reason why? What is the economic manager's thinking, Mr. President? To also guide us.
Mr. President, I was just informed that it was not part of the draft proposal of the DSWD for NEP 2025. So,
Hindi kasi paakyat yung ano, wala nga sa DSW.
so sa GAB, dinagdag po ito.
Okay, so ibang process po yun. Okay po. Pwede humingi na advice sa economic managers? Is this expenditure, 39 billion peso expenditure, a wise expenditure?
Mr. President, according to our Secretary of Finance, it's a wealth transfer and personally, he supports it.
But we will take this up more in detail when the DSWD budget is being tackled. Because yun na nga, it's a wealth transfer, but because of lack of particulars, we are not clear on who we are transferring that amount to, Mr. President. And there are definitely siguro more people. There are definitely segments of society more in need of the amounts than those who are actually receiving the AKAP because hindi siya well defined.
Okay,
Hindi siya clear nga sa poorest of the poor, unlike yung ibang programs na talagang 4Ps, you have to be in the registry of the poor households. Ito, subject to. I think, ganun, anyway, wala naman siya sa committee report natin, but if ever if the amount will be restored, then kasama niya yung mga special provisions na kadikit niya hindi rin clear dun who will be the recipients of AKAP. That's the
I agree.
We will bring this up again when we come to the DSWD budget.
Actually, Mr. President, any program that can really be disseminated to those that are deserving and in need. Any time that the government has extra cash or the capability to support them, we support it as long as it's something that is sustainable. And I understand and I agree with the minority leader that let us see what the criteria really is and who were the beneficiaries of this. Kasi sino ba yung nagsabi? Depende kung sino ka naka-standby sa munisipyo, yun lang yung nagbigyan, di ba? Parang kung hindi mo alam, katulad ng sabi ni Senator Alan, kung hindi mo alam, hindi mo makukuha. So dapat malaman ng ating mga kababayan na lahat kung may mga programang bago ang gobyerno. Yun lang naman.
That's why, yes, this representation appreciates the decision of the committee led by our chairwoman not to include it in our committee report. So thank you for lack of clear justification and details.
Before we leave this point,
yes, yes, sir.
with the permission of the minority leader, for the record, may I ask, ang English ba ng Ayuda wealth transfer? No, is that how the economic team views Ayuda programs of the government as a wealth transfer mechanism?
Mr. President, it's partially true because it's transferring wealth to the poor. There are certain or lower middle class. Kasi nga, di ba, it's wealth because I guess it's an asset that we have, cash reserves or whatever, and the allocation of which we transferred. So,
If it's wealth transfer in part, what is the other part? In part lang kamo eh. What is the other part of Ayuda? If it's not just wealth transfer.
so there are other means, free education, health assistance. So they're not necessarily wealth transfers, but they are still assistance. So I
Wealth transfer would only refer to cash transfers,
yes, Mr. President.
not to transfers or assistance that are in kind.
For now, that's a
Educational
loose
assistance,
definition.
health assistance, they're not viewed as wealth transfer mechanisms of the administration.
Yes, not necessarily. So it's a loose definition, but basically what we're saying is it's something that we are imparting, sharing also na makarating dun sa ating mga kababayan.
Thank you, distinguished
It's
sponsor.
1% of GDP.
Minority Leader,
Redistribution of wealth.
Minority Leader, madami ka pa. Si Senator Bato, ang last na after you. Hindi kita minamadali, nagtatanong lang ako, ikaw naman.
Hindi, okay.
Maaga pa po, Mr. President.
I'm just
I think
asking.
1 hour pa lang tayo.
Hindi 1 hour and a half.
1 hour and 15 minutes. Yes. No, but before I forget, Mr. President, ito na muna about the budget na muna.
The gentleman will continue.
Yes, yes. Our 2025 proposed budget is 10% higher than the 2024. So
Yes, Mr. President.
may we know what caused the increase and how come it reached 10%, Mr. President?
Well, the highest allocations are, as stated in our constitution, DepEd, di ba? Tapos, actually 7.4%.
That 7 point. It's in the president's message. It's
10.1%.
10%.
Oo. Now, pero 7.1.
May we get the figures right, Mr. President?
So, okay. So, now, Mr. President, ang mga, it's strategically crafted to balance fiscal responsibility and the need to boost investment in growth-enhancing expenditures. It was framed on the President's 8-point agenda. So, ano yung mga general expense class? Well, alam naman natin na, syempre, tumataas rin naman yung sweldo.
What caused the increase, the 10% increase? Sweldo lang?
Maintenance and other operating expenses will get the bulk of the proposed budget next year at 2.4 billion. The proposed, hold on, Mr. President. Again, going back, the ones that have the particular increases, no? Alam natin the expenditure, the highest is always DepEd. Then we have the SWD. But for DepEd, for example, computerization program from 8.9 billion 2024 to 12.4 billion. Teaching allowance, di ba,
Yun.
dinagdagan natin ito?
Yes.
From 4.8 billion naging 9.9 billion na. So doon pa lang makita mo na yung textbooks from 12 to 12.4 billion, last mile school program, and tapos learning tools from 3. Sorry, Mr. President. Yung higher allocation for health sector, the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation, PhilHealth.
Siguro itong UBP na ano.
Tapos, yung mga hospitals, for example, DOH Metro Manila hospitals from 18 billion to 23 billion. Other health facilities from 53 to 76 billion. National Health Workforce Support, pareho lang. So, yun po yung mga big items. National procured commodities for family health, immunization, nutrition, responsible parenting from 7 to 10 billion. Communicable diseases prevention and control from 1.7 to 3.5 billion. Ito, Pantawid Pampamilya Program, Mr. President, from 106 billion to 114 billion. Ito, implementation of the Centenarian Act. Di ba, marami tayong mga friends dyan na kailangan naman ay from 186.1 million to 3 billion.
Batas po natin yan.
Kasi batas na nga eh.
Po.
Yes.
So,
at saka sa infra, marami. Kung gusto nyo isa-isahin natin.
So, ang iba, ganito po ba, ang iba doon ay conscious decision natin na taasan ang amount ng mga programs. Ang iba doon, tumaas talaga ang gastusin sa operations. Select ng mga hospital, how to...
Opo.
Ganun po ang dahilan.
Well, kasi sabay-sabay po pag sa operation cost, pati po yung sweldo rin ng mga
Sweldo, did we also increase the amount for the salaries of government personnel?
Yes, ma. Yun nga yung
Where is that found in what item?
Sa MPBF.
MPBF. And actually ba, meron ba legal basis for the increase in the pay of the government employees?
Well, first of all, may executive order rin yung presidente, Mr. President.
Okay.
Which is given in tranches, di ba? Para nag-umpisa na this year, may continuation next year, and it will be adapted thereof. So, this is actually good news for many of our government workers.
So, yung bulk ng amount sa MPBF will be spent for the increase in the salaries of government workers, and that is based on an EO, not a law.
Yes. But then also like the law of like the salary standardization, which is also what we follow. But there's a jump because of the current EO.
Can the DBM...
and may legal basis kasi EO yan eh.
Yes, sige.
And it's still anchored in the law, Mr. President.
But can the DBM educate this representation? Do we need the law to catch up because the last SSL has already expired? Tama po ba yan? Yung understanding ko?
Yeah.
Kasi unfortunate naman siya sa previous SSL. 306
Tama ba? Nag-expire naman SSL.
Mr. President, there's no additional law needed because EO 64 is already anchored on one of the provisions of the SSL, which is actually the schedule of increase.
Yes. Sige, we will study the inputs from Yusek Abuel as of the DBM. Kanina po tinanong ko yung total amount for our overseas travel. May we know now this time what is the total amount for our Ayuda programs? Feel free to define what is an Ayuda program, Madam Chairperson.
253 billion is allocated for Ayuda. 253.4 billion is allocated for Ayuda to provide financial support to vulnerable populations. The DSWD will receive the highest allocation, 205.5 billion. Of this amount, kasama yung Pantawid Pampamilya Pilipino Program, 4Ps, which will get 114 billion.
Sige po, kahit na, okay.
Wala pang akap dito.
Yes. So, we have been given the figure of around 253 billion pesos in our budget for next year will be for Ayuda, and the Ayuda programs are named what? 4Ps? What else po?
Pantawid Pampamilya.
Yan yung 4Ps.
The other
Ano po?
one is
Social pensions.
social pensions for indigent citizens, SOCPEN. And then
Foods, Philippine foods.
food stamp, Philippine food stamp for 1.8 billion. Sustainable Livelihood Program, SLP, 4.4 billion.
Thank you. Yung pong mga tupad ng DOLE at saka Integrated Livelihood Program, do we consider them as Ayuda programs? Kasama din po?
Kasama po pala siya dito sa next page. Yung tulong panghanap buhay or tupad and program of DOLE, which is 14.1 billion.
Okay din, apo.
Oo.
So thank you for that. So at least alam ng taong bayan na meron po tayong 253 billion pesos for Ayuda programs in the NEP. This is in the NEP and also maintained in our committee report. Did we maintain this amount?
Kasamang akap. We retained kasi hindi naman kasamang akap dito sa...
Yes. Opo. So okay. So yung pagdating po sa unprogrammed appropriations, although I have a pending case before the Supreme Court questioning the fourth mechanism. Did we include in our committee report the fourth mechanism?
Wala pa po.
Wala. Ang fourth mechanism is yung
Transfer.
to look for idle reserve funds and then kukunin.
Oh.
So maybe was this fourth mechanism in the NEP?
No, Mr. President.
May we know from the economic managers how come from those who crafted our 2025 budget, how come they did not retain the fourth mechanism found in the 2024 law, Mr. President?
Ito na yung release mo. Ito naman yung sa'yo sa PhilHealth.
Mr. President, they deemed already efficient the excess revenue, especially now that there's an ongoing court case. Meron na namang 158 158 lang ang prinopose. Oo, for
What does that mean, 158?
158.7 billion or 2.5% for unprogrammed.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Maliit lang. Oh.
Likewise, wala.
At saka napadali yung solusyon ng problema dahil wala nang pagkukunan.
Yun na nga. So yun ang tinatanong ko, was that meant to be a one-time exercise of that power, Mr. President?
Pwede rin naman. Pwede rin.
Like a bayanihan tree.
Okay. In the exercise of that fourth mechanism, yung sweeping the excess funds, how much was transferred to the National Treasury, Mr. President? Swap tayo kung bala pang gamitin.
4.9 billion excess income
160.
from fund balances.
164.9 billion. Okay. And then, can we get a breakdown from what GOCCs this amount
Okay,
came from?
the first tranche of fund balance, PDIC, 30 billion. Second tranche, 30 billion from the PDIC. Third tranche, 20 billion. And then first tranche of PhilHealth, 20 billion. Second tranche of PhilHealth, 10 billion. Third tranche, 30 billion. And 60 billion CMF. 60 billion PhilHealth. 104.9 billion PDIC.
So only from two agents, from two GOCCs. Okay. Di ba yung PDIC, that's supposed to be the insurance fund to...
Yes, Mr. President, they have a reserve fund right now of, I
Yes.
think, 250
So 250
billion. And they only
minus
use
100.